All right, how can I be helpful today?
Oh, my best hopes from this meeting. First of all, I would love you to introduce yourself to our audience and tell a little bit about yourself.
I'll be happy to do that. So my name is Ben Furman. I can watch in the camera, or I can watch you. I'm a medical doctor from Helsinki, Finland. Not so far from Poland. There's only one boat quickly goes between the two countries. And I'm specialized in psychiatry, not adult psychiatry, not child psychiatry. But I have always been interested in working with children too, not only adults, because family therapy, solution-focused therapy, brief therapy, you can use with any people, not only people who have problems, even people who don't have any problems but still want to change something in their lives.
Okay, that's great. Ben, you just had a very interesting presentation here in Sofia, and you were giving a lot of examples about giving some questions. Could you give us some little summary of this workshop?
I can, because what I think, there is many ways of defining what is solution-focused therapy. And I think if you ask different people, they have a little bit different ideas. For this person, it's something like that, and for this person, it's something like that. So for me, solution-focused therapy means the art, let's not say science, the art of asking good questions. And when I say good questions, I mean helpful questions. I mean questions that kind of help people to start to get ideas of what I can do myself to solve my problem. And there are such questions. There are also questions that make you feel more heavy and more pessimistic. And there are questions that make you feel optimistic and more collaborative with other people. So questions are actually very interesting. And I think everybody has already good questions. So I like to ask people, what questions do you have? That you can see that when you ask these questions, people start to become a little bit, energized or empowered or rich with ideas, trusting themselves. And I think that's the whole thing, asking useful, good questions to people. And then we can start to look at any good questions, not only those in solution focused. Whenever you hear a good question, put it into your box. And I have always been a collector, collect good
You
questions.
have a quite big box.
I have a big box of good questions, like a magician who has different magic tricks. Let me show you this one and let me show you that one. So we can all share our good questions. So I think when therapists meet each other, I'm meeting you, you are meeting your friend, we often ask, so what questions are you asking these days? What questions are useful to you? And sometimes you want some fresh questions because you may be tired of your old questions. And I think that's the point of solution-focused therapy, learning to ask good questions.
What does it mean, useful question?
I would like to define it as like when people come to therapy or coaching, they feel that I have a difficult problem, I don't know what to do about it. I tried this and I tried that and nothing works. They feel like a little bit stuck with the problem. But if you ask them a good question, they start to change their mind. They go like, oh, maybe I'm not so stuck with the problem. Oh, maybe I have some ideas. Oh, maybe I could do that. They become creative. And that could be one way of defining it. You could say there is only one reason why people have problems. They lost their creativity. And your job is to get them to become creative again. That's one way of saying it. So if you ask good questions, like, for example, I ask you, what did you do that worked sometimes? And you say, well, I tried this, but it didn't work every time, but sometimes it worked. And I go like, wow, that's a great idea. How did you come up with that idea? It's a simple question. How did you come up with that idea? And you start to think, well, how did I come up with that idea? And then maybe you say, I learned it from my grandmother. Oh, so you have a grandmother who had many good ideas. So I'm asking you questions, but the questions are strategic. They are not just questions, let's talk about this in any way we like. I'm trying to find useful questions that I think could be useful to you. So that could be one way of describing what means useful questions. Empowering questions. Creativity inspiring questions. Collaboration improving questions. So if you ask questions, if I ask questions to the child, how did your mother help you? Then I'm improving the relationship. By the question, I'm improving already the relationship with the child and the mother. Or I ask the parents, in which situations have you been able to cooperate? I could also ask them, in which situations are you always arguing about the children? We have a long discussion, but it's not going to help anybody. It's going to make them even more angry towards each other. But if I think about what I ask, and I ask them, in what situations have you been able to collaborate? Or in what matters? Maybe the diet or the school. Then my questions are improving their collaboration. So, one way of thinking about it. We want to ask questions that hope, you become more hopeful. We want to ask questions that make people more collaborative. So you don't hate everybody around you, but you think that everybody's helping me. And we want to have that creative mindset, the feeling that I think I have an idea.
So speaking about creativity, you mentioned with the answer before. You presented a lot of creative questions, actually a lot of creative way to adjust, for example, miracle question. Is it okay, and how does it work to change a little bit miracle question, adjust it to your clients?
Like in our institute, we don't teach the miracle question at all. And often I don't use the scaling question. So there are some questions that some people like, and other questions that other people like. So everybody has to find their own favorite questions. So instead of the miracle question, we like to ask our clients a similar type of question. It's like, suppose this conversation was useful to you. No, let's say we can say, suppose I meet you in 1 week from now. And I'm going to ask you, how's it going? And suppose you say, much better. I will become very curious and I will say, why you say it's better? What do you think you will tell me? So that's another version of the miracle question. And some people may find it more fitting. So some people say, I like to ask the question like that. I once had a puppet, and I wanted the family, mother and child, to answer how they would like the life to be. They were already telling me how terrible it was. Every morning, every evening, fighting, shouting. I took my big size puppets and I showed the girl and the mother and I said, do you know what this puppet can do? No. I said, the puppet can do magic. No. Yeah, the puppet can do magic. So we are starting a game. And the game is, let's imagine that this puppet can make magic happen. What kind of magic would you like it to make happen? For example, would it be nice if this puppet made the magic that tomorrow morning is a perfect morning for you? See? I'm just inviting them to talk about how they want their life to be. So there are many ways. If you want a person to have images, fantasies, ideas, descriptions, examples, how they want their life to be tomorrow, after a week, when it's good, then you can ask that in many ways. I was even telling today in the lecture that you could have a little bottle of some juice or some drink, and you can say, "Do you know this is love potion?" And then you create a little bit drama, and then if you drink it, your relationship will become better. Of course, they know you are kind of joking. Kind of joking, but you are not joking. You are helping them start to describe what positive future they want, and I think that's the best first step. Of course, it's not enough if you ask people, "How would you like your life to be?" and they explain it, and they are all, "I want it to be like that," and then you say, "Okay, goodbye." That's terrible. I don't have a life like that. I was talking about all these dreams that I want, and then the therapist said, "Go away." Then you become very sad. So solution-focused therapy is based on a combination. First, you want people to start to imagine how they would like their day, or their relationship, or their stamina, their mood, their communication, how they would like this to be in the future. And then, of course, you are doing a disservice to people if you don't talk and ask more questions. These more questions, they create the hope that this can happen. So then you also have to ask about, okay, so what resources do you have? Who can help you? What kind of a project could you make to make this happen? What have you already done that's in the same direction? Wow, what else have you done? What other similar challenges have you? So there, you cannot only ask the miracle question. Miracle question is just the, like in music, you have the da 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 when it starts. The, what is it called? The prelude.
Prelude, yeah.
Prelude. So you cannot only do prelude. Prelude is just to get an idea where we want to go. Then you have to talk about why we believe this is possible.
Um, I'm wondering, because you said that it's a prelude for some longer song for the music you want to play. This is one of the tools we are using, one of the techniques we are using. I'm just wondering because 2 years ago I've seen a little demo of your session where you were talking with the adult person, and you converted the problem for the skill, like it's, for example, in key skills or in Mission Possible or in other methods. However, you also use the name of the skill the person is going to learn. So that was impressive to me, how incredibly that worked for that person. And I'm just wondering how many tools, steps, techniques you can use also for adults. Are they can they be used in other situations also?
There are many people now who come to me and they kind of jokingly say, this method for children, these kid skills, I have been using it with adults. And I usually answer, me too, because it's a collection of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Kid skills is a collection of good questions. One of the questions is, so what do you need to learn so that you don't have this problem? And then people start to think, and they come up, I need to learn to calm myself down when I get angry, for example. So then, what is your next question? Of course, you could go like, okay, so how are you going to do it? But that's maybe not the best next question. There are many other good questions that you can ask rather than jump on the, I need to learn to speak nicely to my child, how are you going to do that? That's not nice. We can do other questions. And one of the good questions that we ask for children, and you can ask exactly the same question from adults, is like, how is that going to be good for you? How is that going to be good for your child? Do you think your mother will be happy if you learn that skill? Wow, that's nice. Who else will be happy? So you're kind of doing a step from kid skills, which is the benefits of the skill. This is, of course, for everybody. It's not only for children. And then in kid skills, we like to ask the children if there is a skill, then I need to learn to calm myself down. And then you go like, so what do you call it? What? Well, the skill that you want to learn to keep cool or something. I don't know. And then we are kind of searching for a name. Maybe it's like one boy, he said the name of the skill is snow. Okay, snow, why not? It's just as good name as any other name. So the name of the skill is snow. But there's another important question that you always want to ask kids, but maybe not only kids, anybody. What do you do if you forget your skill? Do you think it can happen that sometimes you forget to cool down when you are angry? Yeah, it can happen. Can other people help you in that situation? Yes. So what do you want them to tell you? The boy said, they can tell me snow. Do you think it will help you? Shall we try? So now we are asking good questions. They are questions that help people create projects, ideas about what you can do about problems. So that could be our topic everywhere. And you don't even have to go, like it doesn't have to be solution focused. You can talk with any therapist and say, what are your useful questions? I have found some useful questions. We don't have to, we don't even have to say we are solution focused. You could say, I'm a good question therapist. I'm a coach who asks good questions. Are you solution focused? I don't know, maybe some people say. But in this way, maybe it's easier to learn from one another. The people who say, I don't like solution focused, they can still learn to use some of the questions that we have found. Maybe they have good questions that we can learn from them.
Okay. Thank you very much for making our box bigger today, and not only today. In the end, would you like to share some advice or something you would like to say to the people who are practicing not only kid skills, but who are asking good questions, useful questions, and they are not sure if they are doing it right?
That's a good one, because what happens is that when people then start to use solution-focused questions, they realize it's not quite as simple as it sounds. When you ask a good question, you may also need to learn to ask the next question. For example, if a person says, I don't know. So beginner therapists, they are like, I asked the question, but the client said he didn't know. That's not a problem. Of course, people say, I don't know. You can say many things. You can even say, you need some time to think. We are not in a hurry. Just saying simple things like that. And the person will continue to think, and maybe they will have an answer. You can even say, I'll ask you next time again. Give them so much time. So if you have a good question, it's not a bad sign. It can be a good sign that the client says, I don't know. So these are little techniques and tricks of how do you continue when you ask a question. For example, if you ask the miracle question or any version of the miracle question, people start to tell you how they would like their life to be, then what then? What now? What should I do now? Then it's very important to start to ask questions that in our solution-focused language we say of small signs that the miracle is already happening. That's how they say it. But it means things that are indications that there are some developments in that direction. Otherwise, the miracle question is no useful unless it helps you to see those small steps that you are already taking. So it's an art form, and how we learn. Our students in Finland, we always put them into small groups, and in these small groups, the group sees the clients. So when they see the clients, and I'm asking a question, and then I don't know what to say next, then usually in the group somebody says, well, can I ask you? Or I have another question that fits with, and they kind of work as a team. And by working as a team, you start to learn not only the questions, which you can learn from the video, but you also learn how to continue after asking the question, how to make it smooth, natural. So always when you talk with people, it should be the discussion. It should be so natural that people don't have the feeling that they have been in some weird therapy. They have been talking, almost like talking with a friend, who makes it very natural. So we try to make it natural. That's why the miracle question needs many modifications. So you might even say, oh, so you have been taking medication for your depression. I see. Well, how is the medication helping you? Not so good. I see. You would like to have a better medication? Yes. Suppose you find a good medication, how would you notice that it works? There you are tuning in to what the client thinks could help him. And then you don't have to speak about the miracle, you speak about whatever it is that can help the client to imagine that something good could happen to them. So that would be my advice for people who come into this field, and they are first excited about the questions, but it's not the questions, it's the way of talking in a natural way, helping people first imagine what they want, and then see that they're already doing in the right, many right things, and feeling a little bit proud. We are good people, we have done right things, and with that feeling of pride, maybe a little bit feeling more connected to the mother and father and the other people, and that, how should we say, climate, atmosphere. This is the atmosphere that does the therapy, not the questions.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.